Good morning. My name is Erica Wade. I'm the board executive for the Real Estate Commission. We would like to say welcome, and we're so delighted to see so many of you that have joined us this morning for our first workshop education series titled Inspections, How to Be Prepared If You Are Selected. Before we get started, let's take care of some housekeeping items. This workshop is being recorded and it will be uploaded to the Commission's website for future viewing. Also, if you have any questions, please type all of your questions into the chat box. We have our REC staff that will be monitoring the chat box and will be answering any questions as we move along into the presentation. There will also be a Q&A period, and we will try to get to make sure all of your questions is answered during the Q&A. For your convenience, we are going to place the link to the inspections overview and forms into the chat box so that you will be able to access them as we move through the presentation. I would like to recognize any of our legislators, our commissioners, our SCR staff, or any of our partner association members that have joined us on the call this morning. We just want to say thank you for your support. We hope that you will share the information that is being presented with your constituents and members that were not able to be on the call with us this morning. Also, I'd like to recognize our Vice Counsel, Ms. Brandy Duncan, our Program Director, Ms. Meredith Butler, Disciplinary Counselor, Shannon Davis, our Lead Investigator, Mr. Wardy Wharton, and all of the REC staff that have worked so hard to make this presentation possible this morning. As a friendly reminder, June 30th is quickly approaching. I would like to encourage you to please ensure that all the licensees that you supervise that are up for renewals in this renewal period complete their renewals before the deadline. Again, that's June 30th, 2025. Please visit our website under licensee lookup, put in your credentials, and you will be able to see all the licensees that you supervise with their expiration dates. Only input your name and/or your license number in the search engine. If you need any further assistance, please feel free to contact our office at 896-4400. That's 803-896-4400. With that being said, I would now like to turn this presentation over to our inspections team that is led by Ms. Jennifer Stillwell and Ms. April Howe, who will be our presenter. Thank you. April?
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear and see me okay? So I want to make sure we're gonna go over our presentation, and so I want to start with some introductions. I'm April Howe. I'm the program manager over inspections. Jennifer Stillwell is our assistant deputy director. She is the previous chief inspector for this board and many others. But she is available and on the call for questions. If it is possible, I would like my team to appear. We currently have 4 main inspectors that are conducting the real estate inspections. I have a team that's larger than that, but they are still in training. So the 4 that are on the call today are going to be available to answer any questions that you have, as well as Mr. Wardy Wharton, who is the lead investigator, for real estate. So we will all be available to answer questions at the end. Again, questions, if you can put them in the chat as we go. We have had some common questions that have come in, whether it's through Erica's team or myself. And so I do have answers to those common questions that I will start with at the end. But the hope is that the presentation is going to answer all those questions for you. So the presentation itself will also be made available, I believe, online. So we are recording this, but also the presentation itself will be available to you. And again, as Erica had alluded, those forms should be uploaded to the chat for you to review as well. With that in mind, if David, Garrett, Latasha, and Jamie can pop open their cameras real quick, I'd like to introduce them. I don't know that I will honestly see them. I don't see them coming up, but so David Gilmore, Garrett Carter are my 2 lead inspectors. They have so they lead a team of 8 each, or 6 each actually. And then Latasha and Jamie are also the other inspectors. I don't see that their cameras are coming on, so I apologize for that. If you can see them, then great. Hopefully they're waving at you. But those are the faces that you will see, and that will be contacting you to get these things scheduled. So just kind of as an overview of what to expect today, the goal for this is to just make sure that we are giving you the information. Again, it is going to be all online for you, and try to get all those questions answered. I know you probably have a lot of questions. Again, I hope the presentation will help with those questions, and we'll make that available at the end. With that, Erica, if you want to go ahead and get the PowerPoint up. Perfect. All right, again, so we are going to be talking about, thank you. I was just told I need to talk louder, so I'm going to talk louder. This is the process of inspections, and this is how to be prepared if you are selected for inspection. So inspections will be routine, and so they will happen to all licensees. And so we're going to go through that process step by step. If you can do next slide, please. Here we go. Okay. So this is just a reminder of the code that authorizes inspections. This isn't anything new. According to South Carolina Code 405760C, we are, we can periodically schedule inspections. Historically, what we have done is we have inspected when we have had potential complaints or issues. We've inspected new operations. So kind of the difference moving forward is that we will be conducting routine inspections. So those will be happening and good for 3 years. But that is kind of the difference, and the reason for today's kind of training is to get everybody familiar with that process, what that looks like, what the forms are going to look like, and recognizing that the commission worked really hard to make sure that all of these processes that we put in place and all of the forms were reviewed and talked about tremendously. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of board meetings that went into this, a lot of work. And we wanted to ensure that the end results were complete, fair, but also encompassing any common issues that we had seen previously. Next slide. All right, so the process overview, I'm going to go through each one of these and more in detail, but essentially we're going to start with that contact. So you'll be getting a phone call, an email from one of the inspectors to get that inspection scheduled. We will conduct the inspection. There are some preliminary things that will be expected of you ahead of time, and then that actual inspection date. And then we're going to go over kind of the results, what encompasses a fail or pass in those inspections. Next slide. All right, so first is going to be that contact. The inspectors are going to contact the broker in charge or the property manager in charge to get these scheduled or to schedule the inspection. They will be making up to 3 attempts in order to get in touch with y'all. And one of the reminders I want to go over is just make sure that your contact information is correct with the LLR. That's super important, and it is an issue across all our boards, but we want to make sure that that contact information is up to date. We need to know, how to get in touch with you, of course. So contact via phone number and email is best. We can contact you via mail. It's a little less common. Most likely they're going to call you. If they can't get in touch with you, they're going to email you. And we're going to give you some time in between too. We recognize that y'all are busy, you're on vacation, that sort of thing. So we kind of will, wait a couple days. If we don't hear from you, I try again. But basically, we're going to make 3 attempts to get in touch with you. And essentially, we need you to call us back or email us back to get this inspection scheduled. One thing I do also want to just mention, we do have issues with false inspectors contacting licensees. It hasn't happened with real estate yet, but it has happened on some of our other boards. So just a couple things to expect from our inspectors. One, they come in uniform. So we have LLR issued polo shirts that have our logo on it. They should be in those uniforms when they come. They do have a badge identifying them as who they are, also with the LLR logo on it, including their business cards. And also they should be contacting you from LLR email addresses. So there shouldn't be any personal email addresses or anything that they contact you from. It should be their name at llr.sb.gov. That is the standard issued email addresses. So some of those things just kind of keep an eye out for. If you are suspicious or you have any hesitancies whatsoever, please call the office and verify the person that's calling you is in fact the inspector. But they will be contacting you again, most likely via phone and secondarily email or vice versa. And please try to be prompt when getting back to them. Next slide. One of the issues that we've had is that we, haven't gotten or received any contact back when we do try to reach out. So one of the things that kind of moving forward, we're going to do that 3rd attempt. If we don't hear from you after that 3rd attempt, and again, we're going to give about 5 days between contacts. So we recognize again people go on vacation, things happen, people get busy. So 3 different attempts. And after that 3rd attempt, an additional 5 days really, we will send out a certified letter to the broker in charge or the property manager in charge, notifying you that we could not get in touch with you to schedule the inspection. And at the same time, a complaint will be filed and open for investigation. So want to just make you aware of that. That is something that is relatively new. Again, can't stress enough, make sure your phone numbers are right, make sure your emails are correct. That is the responsibility of a licensee, is to ensure that we have the appropriate and correct contact information for you. So just please make sure that that is the case. All right, so as far as scheduling goes, a couple of things to keep in mind. So we are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, the state agencies. There can be some rare exceptions to that, not on weekends necessarily, but sometimes I know for some of our other boards, we've scheduled inspections a little earlier, potentially a little later, but we do try to stay into that Monday through Friday 8 to 5 time frame. We also ask that the inspection be scheduled within the 2 calendar weeks of contact, and there's a reason for that, and I'll get into the details of that a little bit further down. But basically, we want to make sure that we're scheduling these things promptly. Scheduling them a month out isn't going to really work. And again, sticking with that Monday through Friday. What will happen after the inspection is scheduled is the inspector will email a confirmation of your date and time. They will also email you the inspection form and the information and instructions. So one of the great things about this process is everything is written down and the instructions are very clear. So, we're trying to avoid confusion and trying to ensure that the process is smooth for both you and the inspector. So everything will be emailed to you ahead of time. There is some pre-work required, which I'll get into in a little bit. But that email confirmation of the inspection date and time, the inspection form, and the information instructions will all be emailed to you ahead of time. And then we also ask that any rescheduling of inspection to be done at least 2 days prior to the inspection date. I just want to mention that my inspectors, they drive all over the state, and they have 9 boards that they have to do inspections for. So they are not just real estate inspectors. So rescheduling is super important, that we do that promptly and ahead of time, because they can't necessarily rearrange their entire schedule for a reschedule. It will have to be put off for within that 2-week calendar time frame again. So again, if we can get any rescheduling of inspections for whatever reason, contact your inspector and try to do that at least 2 days ahead of time if we're having to if we are having to reschedule that. Again, communication is key. Our inspectors are very reasonable, fair people. We know things come up. We're not, it is not designed to, we're not trying to make this difficult. We're wanting to make it as easy and smooth as possible for everyone. So reach out to the inspector and just let them know, hey, something came up, we got to reschedule. But again, try to do that very promptly. Next slide. All right. So the preliminary paperwork that the inspector sends you, there is some information that you do need to fill out ahead of time. With that being said, we want to make sure that that is done within 5 days. So when you schedule your inspection, we're going to schedule that within the 2 weeks. And then we are going to ask that you return the required paperwork and documentation within that 5 days. And again, once you see the form, it is very clear what is expected of you ahead of time versus during the actual inspection itself. So filling out that paperwork 5 days ahead of time, or within the 5 business days, excuse me. We do need to make sure that that comes back to us because there is some homework that our inspectors have to do ahead of time as well, and we want to give them that time frame to do that. A failure to return that completed form or the completed forms within the 5 days will result in a cancellation and a rescheduling of that inspection. Again, they have our inspectors have things that they have to look at ahead of time, and if we don't have that information ahead of time, we're not able to look at it ahead of time. It messes up the inspection process. So we want to make sure within those 5 business days we can get those things back to us. Next slide. So and to the previous slide had the in-state, the out-of-state. So we've had some questions come up about this, but the out-of-state, what that means is that the office itself, the entity itself is out-of-state. However, there are listings in South Carolina, so you're practicing within South Carolina. The spreadsheet that we are requiring, and again, there are instructions on this, is the listings for the last 5 years, or the previous 5 years, and that is just South Carolina listings. So the South Carolina listings are all the ones that we care about. If the office is located out of state, then they will be required to provide a spreadsheet listing those prior 5 years. And then also for that inspection, the inspector will also ask that the appearance of the broker in charge, property manager in charge, meet via virtual meeting. Obviously, we can't go to the office necessarily, especially there's some places, I think, in New York and elsewhere. We recognize that. So it would be a virtual meeting inspection rather than a physical in the office inspection. Next slide. Okay. So the inspection itself, we've scheduled the date. You've gotten all the forms ahead of time. So basically we are, once we get that packet returned to us or the information returned to us, we will provide everything to you after the inspection is complete. The things that you need to have available during the inspection, so at the actual inspection date and time, are the office policy manual and records. So for those out of state, the listing. So, and having that listing, that spreadsheet having a record for those listed on that spreadsheet available, because the inspector is going to probably take some files from there to be able to review, and then having that office policy available as well. So if the inspector will also attempt to look at the spreadsheet ahead of time, and potentially even email you the listings that they're going to want the records to review. That can be done at the time of inspection or before. It's really up to the inspector and how they want to do that, but we got to make sure that those records are available to the inspector at the time of the inspection. Once the inspection is complete, the finalized report will be made available to you. Next slide. So if the results of the inspection is that you pass, that pass is good for 3 years. And when the office is due for another inspection, so again, we're going, routine inspections every 3 years. A member of the inspection team will reach out to you, and the process will start all over again. So that, and again, that completed inspection form will be, you'll get a copy of that as well. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about results of an inspection if they fail. So what we will do if an inspection fails is we will have to do a re-inspection within 150 days. And so basically the process will start over again. So the inspectors are going to tell you what issues that we had during the inspection. So there's no guesswork in this. We are educators as much as we want the licensees to succeed. So our inspectors are very good about communicating things that are done incorrectly, or educating you on things that we need to do better. So they're going to go over all of that with you. So some of the things that can cause a failure in inspection is, of course, noncompliance. The scheduling can be an issue. So if we don't, if we're having to reschedule you multiple times, that can be, considered a failed inspection. There are a couple of things, and we'll go over that a little bit more in detail when we get over the actual forms of what are auto fails, if you will. But again, the inspectors are there to help. They're there to ensure compliance and to help you become compliant. And so basically, they're going to talk to you about any issues they're seeing, any things that you could do better, some best practices, that sort of thing. They're going to communicate through this whole process with you and talk to you about all those things. If an inspection is failed and we're not getting cooperation, or there's some non-compliance issues that are pretty serious, that sort of thing, you are subject to disciplinary action by the commission. So just kind of keeping that in mind, you're required to cooperate with the inspection, and there can be consequences if that's not the case. Next slide. Again, copy of the report will be made available to you. Inspector will basically require copies of all the documents pulled during the inspection. So we want to make sure if there's records that we look at, that sort of thing, we have the availability and the ability to copy those documents for the record of inspection. And then if any complaints are open, those complaints will be open through the Office of Investigation and Enforcement, and that would be Waddy's team that would investigate those complaints. One of the top ones just to mention, which is I think really the only immediate fail, is the trust fund commingling, or and there can be other egregious violations, but the trust fund commingling is the most common one. So that is an automatic fail. But again, the complaint would be open, and then the complaint process would be started and initiated through the investigative side. All right. So getting into the actual inspection report, basically, again, everything has some very clear instructions written on it for y'all. again, we wanted to make this as easy and straightforward as possible. So some of the sections of the inspection report form, and I do believe we have an example for it coming up here. The contact information is first. So verifying the contact information is appropriate and is correct on there. That is your responsibility to ensure that it's completed appropriately. The office policy, so again, making sure that office policy is available to us at the time of inspection. The trust and the escrow account information, we want to make sure that the documentation shows who holds the escrow funds. We want to make sure that the documentation, or that we have that documentation, excuse me. And then we need that basically filled out before the inspection happens. So really, Roman numeral 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all filled out ahead of time, and part of the packet that goes back to the inspector within that 5 business days. Once we start getting into 5 and 6, those sections are really completed by the inspector, and even a little bit of part of I think 4 as well. Now on the actual form, I'm getting ahead of myself, so I'm going to stop there. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so these are the instructions that you'll be getting, again, with that confirmed scheduled appointment. So everything is broken down by category and section number, and the inspection, the information it tells you what you should be filling out and what the inspector will be filling out. So for contact information, basically what you're looking for is if there's any information that is incorrect, make sure it's completed, fully completed. If there is any information incorrect, you want to contact LLR right away so that we can get that fixed, so we can make sure we can update that, and then make sure that before the inspection happens, that gets corrected. But you want to also fill out the name of the financial institution and the last 4 numbers of the account. For the written office policy, again, we need to make sure that's available to the inspector during the scheduled inspection. And then for the trust escrow account, again, we just need to make sure that that accessibility to the account is available to the inspector when they come. The next section, and this is just a snapshot of the actual instructions. It's an actual full form. But the next section on that, section 4, is the journal or accounting system for sale. We just need to make sure that we have accessibility to the journal or accounting system available to the inspector for the inspection. For the escrow account information, again, access to the account must be available to the inspector. You don't have to complete anything in that section. It's just to make sure it's available. And then the records review and retention. So we need to, for the out-of-state listings, again, they're going to provide that spreadsheet with all the South Carolina listings in it. And then we're also going to ask that, and that's within the last 5 years. And then the inspectors will have the availability or the accessibility to those files so that they can review. They will select 3 files to review randomly while they're there. And again, for the out-of-state listings, they'll select 3 files from that out-of-state list so that they can review those records, and they'll be random selections. If they're not able to get to those files for any reason, then it can result in a failed inspection. We have to be able to see those files. Next slide. All right, so, and this is the actual inspection report form. Again, it's just a screenshot out of it. The forms themselves should be in that chat. But the sections that are completed and returned will be outlined for you again in the instructions, and it also has it on those on the form itself. So you are not filling out any yes or no boxes. That's the inspector that does that. So don't check any boxes for yes and no's. But you would complete pages 1 and 2 of this form, And basically any of the required documents. So if you're out of state, then that spreadsheet needs to come back, and they will send you a copy of it for it to be filled out. And that all has to happen again within those 5 days, the 5 business days prior to the inspection date and time. And again, they may require, we lost our slideshow. The inspector may request that the broker in charge be present during the inspection. It definitely is easier that way. Sorry, I lost the slideshow. Did everybody else lose the slideshow? There it goes. Okay. Back again. All right. Sorry. So yeah, the broker in charge may, should be present during the inspection, and certainly helps things go a lot smoother. Next slide. All right, so there is the inspection form, which is that 3-page document, and then there are the various appendices that go with them. And so again, on the instructions form, this is all outlined for y'all, but there's 3 different appendices, sorry, can't say that word, that go with the form. Appendix A is the records review. So basically, the requirement is if you have within the last 5 years engaged in contract of sale, listing contract, or buying agency agreement, transaction broker agreement, residential property disclosure statement, those all, you need to have those available within the last 5 years. Those are for review only, so the inspector will complete those portions. You don't need to fill anything out here, even if they are provided ahead of time. Appendix B is your trust escrow account. Again, if the office has within the last 5 years maintained a trust escrow account, we will be filling this portion out. Again, review only, so the inspector will be completing this appendix. And then Appendix C is for property management. So that is required if the office has within the last 5 years conducted any property management. And again, the inspector will complete all 3 of these, or one or the other, depending on your specific situation. So those are really just to see ahead of time so that you know what to expect and you know what they're going to be looking for when they come. Next slide. Very briefly, I just want to kind of go over the complaint process, and then I think we'll be opening it up to questions after another slide or so. But basically, complaints are opened if we can't get cooperation. So if we can't contact you, again, that certified letter is going to go out to you. Make sure the address is appropriate. Make sure our contact information is appropriate. If there is, records that we asked for and you're not able to produce, if the inspection fails for any of those various auto fail reasons, basically what will happen is that complaint will be filed with the Office of Investigations and Enforcement, and the investigators will investigate that complaint, and it will go before the IRC and board or the commission for potential prosecution. The other thing, and you can go to the next slide, is citations. So the citations, those 3 listed violations do have citation ability or capability. So basically, the commission provided the inspectors the guidance on when citations should be issued. These 3 are the descriptions of the violations, and essentially, if we see any of these things, that there is a dollar amount or associated penalty to go with it. Those citations are issued at the time of inspection, and or during an investigation potentially, for the investigative side. But basically, citations, if you want to appeal a citation, you have the ability to do that within 10 days of the issuance of the citation. Any appeal for citation has to be done in writing, so email or mail. And again, within that 10 days of issuance. If it's after that 10 days, then you know that I'm sure there's a process for that, but basically it has to be within the first 10 days or the issuance of that citation. And again, those three, so the disciplinary authority is just the actual regulation that it's referring to, but mainly unlicensed practice of real estate or property management, then failure to maintain or have available to supervise licensees, office policy, so the office policy, unlicensed practice, and then forcible failure. Those three are really the, you know, again, a lot of thought went into the state commission, discussed this at length, really over the last couple of years. This has kind of been in the making, but essentially those are the three common issues that they have seen for the, just as so you can understand kind of dollar amounts, if you will. So for like a failure to provide an office policy is a $500 citation, and you have 30 days to correct it. And then same with you know, unlicensed practice and wholesaling. So we want to make sure that we're you know, correcting those things. So the $500 citation, and then that 30 day, within that 30-day mark. With that, I believe we have gone through kind of all of everything. One of the things I did want, before we get to the questions in the chat, and I think I've seen the chat's been going crazy, but not really trying to pay attention to it. I think hopefully things are being answered as we go too. But some of the three common questions, and I apologize if they've already been answered in the chat, but they did come to us ahead of time, so I did want to make sure we address them. So the main common question was, are we inspecting out of state? The answer is yes. If you are operating in South Carolina, we will be conducting inspections for out-of-state entities. And again, there's a little bit of a different difference in the process in that you would have to provide the listings in that spreadsheet for the out-of-state listings, for the South Carolina listings, excuse me. The other big question we get is, can an office be in a home or a personal residence? The answer is yes, but you do have to make sure that that home is open to you or open to the public during normal business hours. And so essentially the gist behind that is that that has to be available to the general public during normal business hours. And probably the most common question I get on a regular basis, but also has come in ahead of time, is, can we have virtual offices? And the answer is no. You have to have a brick and mortar. You can't use an ETS store address. There has to be a physical building for an office. With that, I have nothing further. Erica, I don't know if we've been addressing questions as we've gone, or if we need to address additional questions. We do have, again, my inspectors are on the line, as well as Mr. Wharton for the investigative side. So any questions we can hopefully get answered for you.
Thank you, April, for such an enlightening presentation. Yes, our REC team, we were answering questions in the chat box. We're going to highlight a few of the questions, repeat questions that we saw throughout the chat. One of the questions that we had, state holidays, are they going to be avoided as far as inspections are concerned?
Yeah. So any state holiday, our inspectors are not working. So we would not be able to do inspections on those days.
Okay. As far as records, digital records for paperless system, is that acceptable?
Of course, digital records are acceptable. They just need to be made available to us. We need to be able to see them and print them potentially to include with our report if needed.
Okay. And one question that came in, does the BIC need to be present during an inspection?
It is not required, it is recommended. The inspections typically do go smoother if they are there, because they know, essentially they're responsible for everybody in that office. So, because they're taking on that responsibility, it would be beneficial for them to be there. But
Okay,
it is
another question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but it's not required.
How many inspectors do you anticipate will be in the field? Will several office inspections be planned within a given area, or will they be random?
David, Garrett, I might reach out to you to answer that. So we have inspectors all over the state, and we have inspectors that work certain areas to answer that part of the question. And so the idea is, and the commission has volunteered to be the first to get all of these inspectors through this inspections done through this process. So they are already scheduled. A lot of them are, and or have gotten their inspections completed. But to answer your question, my goal by the end of this year is to have, I believe it's 12, essentially, inspectors completely trained on real estate. Right now, I only have 4. So to give you an idea, and it also depends on the offices. So some of these offices have 50 licensees working in them. So those inspections are going to take longer than one if it's a sole, a sole broker in charge. So we also keep that in mind when we're scheduling these inspections. Some can take, several hours to do an inspection, where others not so much. So there's a lot of variability that happens within these inspections and getting them scheduled. David, Garrett, Latasha, Jamie, feel free to correct me or add to that. I don't know if they can, Erica, because we've got everybody muted, so I don't know if they're able to. Maybe right in.
Okay, another question. What about short-term rentals like Airbnbs? That was a common question that came in the chat box.
Wadi, are you able to answer that one? Are you able to unmute just Wadi?
I know we have a lot of questions that's coming through in the chat box quicker than we could keep up with. So what we are going to do, we will download all of the questions that's in the chat box. We will do a Q&A and place it on the website. So if we don't get to your question on the call, we will definitely have it answered. And we'll also send out an e-blast letting you know when these questions will be answered in our Q&A section on our website. While we wait. Oh, we got Wadi.
Sorry,
Go ahead,
I
Wadi.
apologize. Can you repeat the question for me? The question that was directed at me?
Yeah, so the question was in reference to Airbnbs and short-term rentals. How will you handle inspections for that?
Just like normal, where there's going to be contracts, there's going to be escrows. It's just going to be just like a regular inspection.
Okay. What about referral companies?
It's going to be the same thing, as long as there is a licensed real estate office number, then they're eligible for an inspection, as far as I know.
Okay. April, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, I was just going to concur with that. So, basically the way that these are, how they're brought to our attention is that an inspection is due. So that, and the way that generates essentially is that you're a licensee. So essentially any licensee is subject to inspection. And so, that includes all the variable operations within real estate.
Okay, we had some questions that came in the chat referencing office manuals. We will reach out to SCR to see if we can have a sample of an office manual. That will be also in the Q&A section, so we'll answer that question then. Another question that came up, what if I'm a sole owner / PMIC? What kind of office policy do I need?
So we don't actually tell you what kind of office policy you need. We just need you to have one. So it is essentially, and we see all sorts of variable different kinds. But the policy or the regulation is that you have one, not what's in it. Does that make sense?
It says, do the inspectors need to access the online trust bank accounts or just the hard copy records of the trust accounts?
They do need to have access to the account. And essentially what that looks like is that you're there with them and they're looking at it with you. If that makes sense.
I think we have hit, because I'm going through the chat as we're answering the questions, a lot of them are repeat questions. And I want to make sure that we've hit all of the repeated ones. The sole owner.
Yeah, I was going to say, office policy is a big repeated theme in there.
Yes.
Digital versus paper, that sort of thing. All that we require is that you have one. So if that is digital, we recognize that in this day and age, a lot of things are digital. It can't be something that is, that you grabbed offline real quick. It has to be something that shows that it is your office policy, but it can be in digital format. That is perfectly acceptable. Same thing with records. We recognize that a lot of people have gone digital, so those digital records, again, just have to be able to view them and able to print them if necessary to include our report.
Here's another one, April. Would a missed initial or easily corrected issue constitute a failed inspection?
Not necessarily. So again, our objective is not to file complaints on y'all or cite y'all. Our objective is compliance. So a lot of what my inspectors do and a lot of what they do in the field every day is education. We are willing to work with anybody and everybody that is willing to be in compliance. So, there are very few things that are auto fails, if you will, and we are willing to work with you. And again, sometimes a reinspection doesn't necessarily mean. I think fail and reinspection is kind of being used interchangeable. But if there's something that is missing or something that is not there during the time of inspection that we needed or required, again, you're going to get all the requirements ahead of time. So you're going to know what we're going to be looking for. But if for some reason that can't be provided, our inspectors are going to talk to you about, what that looks like moving forward. And then if we have to do that reinspection date, then the idea of the reinspection is so that you can come in compliance. That's kind of a long answer to a simple question, but there are so many variable things that come into play during these inspections, and sometimes they are not quite a yes or no answer or a black and white answer, and they at times have to look into things as well. So we understand that, and again, our goal is never to throw citations at you or file complaints. Our goal is to educate so that everybody's in compliance and following the rules and regulations as appropriate.
Okay, well, another question that came up, it says, can you provide the template information you need for spreadsheets? Those forms are on the website. I know throughout the chat, we posted the link where you can find the overview and actual copies of the forms on the website. So you can visit our Real Estate Commission website, and everything is posted right there. Here's another one. Regarding records review, again, our office does have required files from the last 5 years, but only at our primary office. Is that okay?
Yeah, as long as we have accessibility, if we have accessibility during the inspection to those. So in other words, if we are not meeting at the primary office, or the primary office is on state, that's where that spreadsheet comes in handy. So that spreadsheet is designed, and it's a blank spreadsheet that you're going to be getting, and it's going to have headings on it that will have just kind of some very basic information, essentially the listing information. So if your primary office is not in the state, then that's when you would utilize that spreadsheet. If your primary office is in the state, then we can either schedule the inspection at the primary office, or you just need to make sure that we have accessibility to those files for the inspection date.
Okay, as far as communication is concerned, April, they're asking whether or not the numbers that will be contacting the BICs and the PMICs, will they be a South Carolina number?
The numbers that my inspectors will be calling from will always be a South Carolina number, yes. Correct. I think that was the question. Okay.
Yes, yeah. And we will also leave a message if we don't get an answer.
Yeah, so I can't stress enough, make sure your contact information is appropriate with LLR. That's huge. That's what they're going to be going by. Another big thing that we get a lot is people don't have their voicemail set up. I know that seems silly, but we can't leave a message. They will text in the hopes that it's a cell phone number. I think most places or most people are utilizing cell phones now as opposed to landlines. So they will try to text if they can't leave you a voicemail. But make sure your voicemails are set up, make sure your phone numbers are correct, make sure your addresses are correct in the system so that so they can get in touch with you. Again, our goal isn't to file a complaint because we couldn't get in touch with you. Our goal is to get in touch with you, get the inspection scheduled so that we can all move forward.
And one more thing, April, can you go over out-of-state offices, please? How will we handle out-of-state inspections?
So out-of-state inspections are literally the same exact procedure as in-state. The only difference is that spreadsheet. We recognize that if you're an out-of-state office, you might have 10 states that you're working out of and have properties in and have transactions in. We only care about South Carolina. So we are going to so that spreadsheet is literally the listing for the South Carolina only listing. And that listing spreadsheet is, you provide it to us ahead of time so that we are able to look at that spreadsheet, given the headings that we have, the commission has established, and we can pick the files that we need to review, the records that we need to review from that spreadsheet. So that's really the only difference. Everything else is handled exactly the same. Obviously, we're not going to go to New York to do an inspection, so that would be a virtual call, WebEx inspection. So that is another difference, is that we're not physically going to the building. But other than that, they're treated exactly the same.
This is an interesting one. If, where did it go? It's talking about failure. Can you go over failure? A failed inspection? So
a failed inspection is going to basically automatically trigger a reinspection. So if you have a failure for whatever the reason may be, then we would do a reinspection. That reinspection is going to be done within the time frame. I think it was, excuse me, I think it was relatively quickly. Hang on a second. Sorry, I lost my place. But so like the one thing that I did mention for the auto fail, if you will, was the escrow account. So that would be something where there's some wholesaling going on. That is going to be an auto fail every time. And that has to, that is, that will potentially produce a citation as well. But that is kind of really the only main auto fail thing. The rest are, we give you the opportunity to come into compliance. So the office policy, for example, if you don't have an office policy and we, get there and you're like, I don't have one, well, then, that would be a failed inspection because that is a requirement. So again, we'll give you the opportunity to get one and then re-inspect after, I think it's the one certain amount of days. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now.
150 days.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so really anything that you see on that inspection form that you don't have that you should have may constitute a failed inspection. In which case, we would have to do a re-inspection, and that re-inspection will be done within 150 days. I know that's kind of general, but again, it's very circumstantial, and it is really based on, if you look at those forms, if you look at that inspection form, it's very clear, either yes or no. If you have it, great, you're good. If you don't, it's a potential for a reinspection.
Asking also, do you need records for buy and sells that has not closed?
Potentially, yeah. So we're not only looking at closed transactions, we're looking at all transactions.
Then it asks, will inspections be scheduled or will they be pop-up visits?
Always scheduled. Y'all are too complex to do pop-up visits. Because we have the very set time frames that the commission has come up with. So just as an example, they have to be scheduled within the 2 weeks that we contact you. So these are kind of key time frames to keep in mind. Has to be scheduled within 2 weeks of contact. Has to be the preliminary work has to be filled out and returned to the inspector within those 5 business days. And so because of those things and because of the amount of work that is required for those things, we will always call the schedule. It will never be a pop-up visit.
They also want to know if the firm fails, is that publicly available information?
All inspections are publicly available. Yeah. I don't believe, and Wadi or Jennifer, you may have to step in. I don't know that they are required to be posted. So we do require inspections to be posted for some of our other boards. And maybe they do. I'm unsure on that one. But it is public knowledge. The inspections are public.
Anybody want to take that? Like I said, again, if we don't get to your question, we will have these questions and answers posted to our FAQ section under the inspections tab on our website. Well, it's approaching 11 o'clock. I just want to say thank you to everybody that was on the call. I'm sure this was very informative. Again, we will post the recording on the website so that you will be able to go back and review it again. And hopefully what you probably missed hearing it live, you'll probably catch it again. Again, these questions will be posted on the website, and we will send out an e-blast to let you know when the information is going to go out. Again, we just want to say thank you to our BICs again, NPMICs again. June 30th is around the corner. Please, please, please make sure that all the licensees that you supervise are, and this is their renewal period. Please encourage them to go ahead and get renewed before the deadline. With that being said, we just want to say thank you. Thank you to you, April, Jennifer, the inspections team. Thank you to the Real Estate Commission team. Thank you to all of those that have been answering the questions in the chat box. A special thank you to Ashlyn Brown, who was able to put this together, and to all of our commissioners, legislatures, SUR members. Thank you so much and have a good day.